What happens when faith grows tired of waiting? What happens when a promise from me seems delayed for so long that people begin searching for their own solutions? Most believers understand how to trust me when the promise is fresh, but the real test comes during the waiting. Days become months, months become years, years become decades, and suddenly the question begins to form. What if I need to help God fulfill His promise? That question changed the course of history, and the consequences of that decision would echo for generations. By the end of this story, you will discover why waiting on my timing is often harder than facing any battle. Years had passed since I promised Abram descendants as numerous as the stars. The covenant had been established, the promise had been spoken, yet one problem remained. Abram still had no son through Sarai. Every day the promise seemed farther away. Every year made the situation appear more impossible. Abram was growing older, Sarai was growing older, and still the child had not come. Have you ever experienced a season like that? A season where you know what I promised, yet nothing appears to be happening. A season where silence feels longer than expected. A season where faith begins to wrestle with frustration. That was where Abram and Sarai found themselves. Sarai looked at her circumstances and saw impossibility. She saw her age. She saw her barrenness. She saw years of disappointment. And eventually she reached a conclusion. Perhaps the promise would come through another way. Perhaps she needed to create a solution herself. So she approached Abram with an idea that seemed practical, reasonable, even acceptable according to the customs of that time. She offered her Egyptian servant, Hagar. If Hagar bore a child, perhaps that child could become the fulfillment of the promise. Notice what happened. Sarai did not reject my promise. She simply attempted to accomplish it through human effort, and that is often where people make mistakes. They still believe my promise. They simply stop trusting my timing. Abram listened, and together they chose a shortcut. At first the plan appeared successful. Hagar conceived. The child was on the way. The solution seemed to work. But what appears successful on the surface is not always aligned with my will. Almost immediately, tension entered the household. Hagar began looking upon Sarai differently. Pride emerged. Resentment grew. Relationships fractured. The peace that once existed disappeared. This is an important lesson. Human shortcuts often create problems that divine timing would have avoided. What seemed like a solution quickly became a source of conflict. Sarai became deeply distressed. The situation she had initiated now caused her pain. She confronted Abram. Accusations followed. Frustration increased. The household became divided. Abram, seeking to avoid further conflict, allowed Sarai to handle the matter. And Sarai dealt harshly with Hagar. The pressure became unbearable. Eventually, Hagar fled. Imagine her situation: a servant, pregnant, alone, far from home, walking through the wilderness with no clear destination, no protection, no support, no future she could see. Perhaps she felt forgotten. Perhaps she felt abandoned. Perhaps she believed nobody cared. But something remarkable was about to happen. For the first time in Scripture, a person encounters the angel of the Lord in a deeply personal way. And that person is not a king, not a prophet, not a wealthy leader. It is a frightened servant woman sitting alone in the wilderness. Think about that. While powerful people often attract attention, my eyes are equally upon the forgotten, the overlooked, the hurting, the invisible. The angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the desert. Notice that wording carefully. Hagar was not searching for me. I found her. Sometimes people imagine that they must somehow find their way back to me, yet many times I come searching for them long before they know where to look. The angel spoke gently, "Hagar, where have you come from, and where are you going?" It was not merely a question about geography. It was a question about her future, her direction, her purpose. Hagar answered honestly. She was fleeing from Sarai. She was running from pain, running from conflict, running from hardship. But the message she received was unexpected. Return, return, and submit. At first glance, this may seem difficult to understand, but what followed revealed something extraordinary. I had not forgotten Hagar. I had not abandoned her, and I had plans for the child she carried. The angel declared a promise. Her descendants would become too numerous to count. The child she carried would be named Ishmael, a name with profound meaning. God hears. Because I had heard her suffering, I had heard her cries, I had seen her tears, and perhaps this is one of the most comforting truths in all of Scripture. The God of heaven hears those whom the world ignores. No prayer is unheard, no pain is unnoticed, no tear is wasted. The angel also revealed details about Ishmael's future. He would become strong, independent, a man whose life would impact many generations. His descendants would grow into a great people. The future unfolding before Hagar was far greater than she could imagine. Then comes one of the most beautiful moments in Genesis. Hagar responded with awe. She declared something no one had said before. "You are the God who sees me." Pause and think about that. Not merely the God who created, not merely the God who judges, not merely the God who speaks, the God who sees. Hagar understood something many people spend their entire lives trying to learn. I see every person, the wealthy and the poor, the powerful and the weak, the celebrated and the forgotten, the faithful and the struggling. No one is invisible to me. No one is beyond my sight. No one is beyond my care. The place where this encounter occurred became known as Bir Lahai Roy, the well of the living one who sees me, a permanent reminder that the wilderness is never empty when I am present. Hagar returned. The child was born, and Abram named him Ishmael. God hears. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael entered the world. The long-awaited son had arrived, or so it seemed. But the story was not over, because Ishmael was not the child of the covenant. The promise would still unfold according to my plan, and that truth would soon create one of the most important turning points in Abraham's life. Perhaps the greatest lesson of Genesis chapter 16 is this: faith is not only believing my promises, faith is trusting my timing. Abram and Sarai believed, but they became impatient, and impatience led them toward a shortcut. Yet even in the middle of human mistakes, my mercy remained at work. I cared for Hagar, I blessed Ishmael, and I continued moving history toward the fulfillment of my covenant, because human failure cannot stop divine purpose, and human impatience cannot cancel my promises. If this story has deepened your understanding of Scripture, subscribe to Primordial Lore and continue exploring the greatest stories ever told. And now, continue to the next chapter, where 13 years of silence come to an end. Abram receives a new name, and an impossible promise becomes even more astonishing.